Hey Reddit, a bit of context. My name's Jason, and my wife, Rachel, and I have been married for 8 years. We've got no kids, our choice, or so I thought, and I work as a project manager for a tech company. My job takes me all over the place, but earlier this year, I landed a long-term assignment in Europe, about 3,000 kilometers away from home. The opportunity was too good to pass up: career advancement, a fat paycheck, and the promise of a promotion. Rachel wasn't thrilled about me being gone, but we agreed it would only be for 6 months, and we'd visit each other when we could. The first few weeks were fine: FaceTime calls every night, texts throughout the day, and her usual sarcastic jokes about me becoming a European snob. Then, somewhere around month 2, things started changing. At first, I didn't think much of it. She started missing our calls, blaming work, or saying she fell asleep early. She got distant, less chatty, and when we did talk, she seemed annoyed, like my voice was interrupting something. Rachel's never been the most emotionally expressive person, so I chalked it up to stress. But then, it got weird. She started posting on Instagram a lot, pictures of fancy dinners, cocktails, and cryptic captions like, "Living life to the fullest cocktail glass." Don't get me wrong, Rachel's always been social. But this was extra. I asked her about it, and she brushed me off with, "A girl's gotta have fun while her husband's halfway across the world." I'll admit, a little seed of doubt planted itself in my brain that day. Still, I tried to convince myself I was overthinking. Rachel wouldn't do anything shady, right? She's my wife, my partner, my best friend. But then, there was the phone call. One night, I called her at our usual time, but it went straight to voicemail. Weird, because she's always got her phone on her. When she finally called me back hours later, she sounded rushed, almost breathless, and I could have sworn I heard a guy's voice in the background. "Who's that?" I asked, my stomach doing somersaults. "Oh, just Jamie," she said. "You know, from work. We're finishing up a project late." Jamie. That was a new name. And something about the way she said it felt rehearsed. The doubts were getting louder. Anyway, that's the setup. At this point, I'm trying to figure out if I'm just paranoid from being so far away or if there's something to be genuinely worried about. I guess we'll see where this rabbit hole leads. It's been a week since I first posted, and honestly, things are spiraling faster than I can process. That tiny seed of doubt I mentioned? It's growing into a full-blown tree, roots and all, and it's suffocating me. Rachel's been acting even stranger lately. I tried to shake off the weird feeling about Jamie from work, but now I can't get it out of my head. Every time we talk it feels off. You know when you've been with someone for years, and you can just tell when they're not themselves? It's like that. Last night was the kicker. I'd been working late, so I didn't text Rachel until after midnight, which was still early evening back home. She didn't reply. I waited for a couple of hours and then called her. No answer. I tried again. Still nothing. Around 4 a.m. my time, I got a text. "Sorry, babe, I was out with the girls. Talk tomorrow?" Out with the girls? On a Wednesday? Rachel's never been the type to go out midweek. She's more of a Friday night margarita kind of person. But okay, people change, right? Except, when I checked her Instagram later, there were no pictures, no stories, no tags, nothing. Rachel always posts when she's out. The pit in my stomach felt like it was expanding. I laid there in bed, staring at the ceiling, running through every interaction we'd had in the last few weeks. The unanswered texts. The excuses. The rushed calls. The Jamie. And then, like a slap to the face, I remembered something she said before I left. "Don't you dare fall for some European supermodel while you're away," she joked, nudging me playfully. I'd laughed, brushing it off as her usual sass. But now, it felt weirdly defensive, like she was projecting. Was this her way of covering for something she'd already done or was planning to do? This morning, I decided to dig a little deeper, not something I'm proud of, but desperate times, right? I logged into our shared cell phone account to check her call logs. I told myself it was just to ease my mind. Big mistake. There it was. Jamie's number. Calls almost every night. Late ones, too. Like 11 p.m., midnight, 2 a.m. And not just calls, texts. Hundreds of them. My heart sank. It was like someone had reached into my chest and started squeezing. I couldn't focus on work after that. My hands were shaking, and my head felt like it was about to explode. I called her during my lunch break, pretending like everything was fine. "Hey, what's up?" I said, trying to sound casual. "Not much," she replied, her voice light, too light. "Just working on some stuff for the marketing pitch tomorrow." Marketing pitch. Right. "How's Jamie?" I asked, forcing a laugh. There was a pause. Not long, but long enough. "What? Why are you asking about him?" Boom. There it was. That edge in her tone, defensive and sharp. I knew I was onto something. "No reason," I said quickly. "Just curious. You mentioned he's been helping you a lot lately." "Yeah, he has," she said, her tone softening. "He's a great coworker, Jason. Don't make it weird." I wanted to scream. To call her out right then and there. But I didn't. Instead, I swallowed the lump in my throat and ended the call, telling her I was busy. When I hung up, I stared at my phone, tears blurring my vision. I felt stupid. Weak. Here I was, thousands of miles away, pouring my heart into making a better life for us, and she was, what? Sneaking around? With Jamie? I don't even know Jamie. I don't know what he looks like, what kind of person he is, or why Rachel would choose him. All I know is that his name is in my wife's call logs more times than mine. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe they really were just working late on a project. Maybe I was blowing things out of proportion. But then, why wouldn't she just tell me? Why the secrecy? The vague excuses? I feel like I'm going insane, Reddit. I'm questioning everything. Every time she smiles at me on FaceTime, I wonder if it's fake. Every time she tells me she loves me, I hear a lie. And the worst part? I'm stuck here. I can't just hop on a plane and go home. I've got 3 months left on this contract, and I'm supposed to be focusing on work, but how can I? My life is falling apart, and I don't even know how to stop it. I don't know what to do. Should I confront her now? Should I wait until I have concrete proof? Or am I just losing it, letting my own paranoia destroy what's left of our marriage? I feel so alone, and I don't know how much more of this I can take. My second update, can't believe I am still reading this here, but let it be. So, I followed some advice from the last post and decided to pump the brakes a little. The paranoia was eating me alive, but a few people suggested I might be jumping to conclusions without enough proof. I hated sitting in limbo, but I didn't want to blow up my marriage over a misunderstanding. Rachel's been acting normal lately. Almost too normal, if that makes sense. She's been texting me more, sending me pictures of her day, and FaceTiming at our usual times again. For a moment, I thought I'd let my insecurities get the better of me. Maybe she really was just stressed out, and I'd blown things way out of proportion. Then, something unexpected happened. Rachel called me one afternoon, sounding unusually chipper. "You're not going to believe this," she said, practically giggling. "What's up?" I asked, my gut tightening. "Jamie got fired." It took me a second to process. "Wait, what? Why?" She let out this nervous laugh, the kind she does when she's trying to downplay something. "Apparently, he messed up some client files and got into it with one of the senior managers. It was a whole thing. But hey, I guess that's corporate life, right?" I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to feel relieved, like the universe had handed me a clean slate on a silver platter. Jamie was gone. The late-night calls, the texts, they'd have to stop now. But something about the way she said it felt rehearsed. Like she wanted me to think everything was back to normal. "Wow," I finally said. "That's crazy. How are you feeling about it?" She hesitated. "I mean, it sucks. He was a good coworker, But it's not like we were close or anything. Not close. Sure. Still, I played along. Well, at least things might calm down for you at work now. Exactly, she said, sounding way too cheerful. Anyway, I've got to run. Just wanted to share the news. Love you. Love you too, I said, even though the words felt hollow. For the first time in weeks, I felt lighter. Maybe I was overthinking. Maybe Jamie really was just a co-worker, and his firing would be the end of this whole nightmare. The next few days were uneventful. Rachel and I talked more, and the tension seemed to lift. She even sent me a photo of her with a few friends at a local bar, smiling and holding a margarita. It was the Rachel I remembered, the one who could light up a room without even trying. But something didn't sit right. I couldn't stop thinking about Jamie's sudden firing. The timing was too convenient. And Rachel's reaction? It felt calculated. Like she was trying to reassure me without actually addressing the elephant in the room. I decided to dig a little deeper, just to be sure. I went back into the call logs on our shared account. Jamie's number had disappeared. Not just the calls, everything. It was like he never existed. At first, I felt relief. No calls, no texts, maybe it really was over. But then it hit me, Rachel had never deleted his number before, even when things were at their sketchiest. Why now? The pit in my stomach was back. I tried to convince myself to let it go. Jamie was gone, Rachel seemed happy, and things were getting back to normal. But deep down, I knew better. Something about this whole situation didn't add up, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I was missing a piece of the puzzle. For now, though, I'm trying to play it cool. If Rachel thinks I'm suspicious, she hasn't let on. And honestly, part of me wants to believe her. I want to believe that we're okay, that Jamie's firing was the end of whatever had been going on. But there's this tiny voice in the back of my head, whispering that it's not over. That this calm is just the eye of the storm. I guess time will tell. For a couple of weeks, things have been calm, almost too calm. Rachel's been sweet, our conversations have been normal, and I was starting to think maybe I really had let my imagination get the best of me. But then my buddy Eric called. Eric and I go way back, high school football, late-night poker games, the whole 9 yards. He's one of the few people I trust implicitly, which is why his phone call hit me like a freight train. Hey Jace, he said, his tone casual but hesitant. Got a minute? Yeah, what's up? I asked, already sensing something was wrong. Listen, man, I wasn't sure if I should even tell you this, but I figured you'd want to know. He paused, which made my heart start racing. Spit it out, Eric, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. So, last night, I was at O'Malley's, you know, that bar downtown. I was meeting some work buddies, just hanging out. And, I saw Rachel there. My stomach dropped. Rachel? Yeah, he said, and now he sounded nervous. She was sitting at a corner table with some guy. Tall, kinda wiry build, dark hair. Looked younger than her, maybe mid-30s? Anyway, I thought it was weird because she looked, cozy with him. Cozy. I hated the way that word felt coming out of Eric's mouth, even though I knew he wasn't trying to hurt me. Did you talk to her? I asked, my throat dry. Nah, he said quickly. I didn't want to cause a scene or anything. But I kept an eye on them, and man, they looked close. Like, leaning in, whispering, laughing. At first, I thought it might just be a friend, but then I heard him call her babe. Babe. The word hit me like a punch to the gut. Did you catch his name? Yeah, Eric said, his voice dropping. That's the weird part. He introduced himself to the bartender as Jamie. I thought that was odd, you know? Sounds like a girl's name or whatever. But I'm guessing you know him? I didn't answer right away. My mind was spinning, my pulse pounding in my ears. Jamie. The guy who was supposedly fired. The guy Rachel claimed she wasn't close to. What the hell was he doing at a bar with my wife, calling her babe? Jason? You still there? Eric asked, his voice pulling me back to reality. Yeah, I said finally, trying to sound calm. Thanks for letting me know, man. I appreciate it. Of course, Eric said. Look, I didn't mean to drop this on you, but I figured it's better you know. Let me know if you need anything, okay? After we hung up, I just sat there, staring at the wall. My mind was racing, trying to make sense of what Eric had told me. Rachel had sworn things were fine. She told me Jamie was out of the picture, that he wasn't even in her life anymore. So why was she at a bar with him, acting like they were a couple? I feel like my whole world is spinning out of control again. I don't know whether to confront her, dig deeper, or just sit back and wait for the truth to reveal itself. I barely slept last night. Every time I closed my eyes, I pictured Rachel sitting in that bar with Jamie, leaning in close, laughing, and letting him call her babe. It felt like a bad dream I couldn't wake up from. But here's the thing, I still can't confront her. Not yet. I don't know why exactly. Maybe it's fear. Fear that I'll blow everything up and find out it's nothing. Or worse, fear that it's everything I think it is. So, I decided to call Eric this morning. If I can't get to the truth myself, maybe he can help me figure out what's going on. Eric, I said when he picked up. I need a favor. Name it, he replied without hesitation. I told him everything. How Rachel had been acting strange, how she'd mentioned Jamie before, how she'd said he got fired, and how none of it added up. By the time I finished, I could practically hear Eric shaking his head on the other end of the line. Man, he said, I don't know what's going on, but something doesn't smell right. You want me to keep an eye on her? Yeah, I admitted, feeling equal parts relieved and embarrassed. I just need to know if there's something I'm not seeing. Can you go back to O'Malley's? Maybe see if they're there again or if anyone knows anything about this Jamie guy. Eric hesitated for a second. You sure you're ready for whatever I find out? Honestly? No, I said. But I'd rather know than sit here driving myself crazy. Eric agreed, and we came up with a plan. He'd casually hang out at O'Malley's over the next week, just to see if Rachel or Jamie showed up again. Nothing too obvious, just enough to gather some info without drawing attention. The first night, Eric texted me around 9 p.m. No sign of her yet. Bar's kinda dead tonight. I'll keep an eye out. I was glued to my phone the whole evening, waiting for an update, but nothing else came through. At midnight, Eric finally called. Nothing tonight, he said, sounding tired. But I'll swing by tomorrow, see if it's any busier. These things take time, man. Thanks, I said, trying to sound patient though my nerves were frayed. The next few nights were more of the same. Eric hung out at the bar, grabbed a drink, and kept an eye out for Rachel or Jamie. Every time he checked in, my heart leapt into my throat, only to sink when he said there was no sign of them. Then, on the fourth night, Eric called me around 11 p.m., his voice low and hurried. Jace, he whispered, you're not gonna believe this. She's here. My heart stopped. Rachel? Yeah. And she's with that guy again. Jamie. What are they doing? I asked, my voice shaking. They're at a table in the back, Eric said. Laughing, talking, same as before. But here's the thing, it's not just the two of them this time. There's another couple with them. Looks like a double date or something. A double date? My head was spinning. What do you want me to do? Eric asked. I didn't know how to answer. Part of me wanted him to march over there and confront them. Another part of me wanted him to take pictures, to get proof. But mostly I felt frozen, unable to make a decision. Just stay there, I said finally. Don't let her see you. If you hear anything interesting, let me know. Got it, Eric said. I sat there, phone in hand, waiting for updates that never came. Eric didn't call back until the bar closed. She left with him, he said quietly. They got into his car together. I couldn't follow. I didn't want to risk being seen. Did you hear anything they said? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Not much, Eric admitted. Just bits and pieces. Something about the weekend and keeping things quiet. Nothing that makes sense on its own. After we hung up, I just sat there in the dark, my head spinning. If it was innocent, why lie about Jamie being fired? Why call him babe? Why leave with him in his car? I barely made it through work that day. Every time I looked at my phone, I half expected Eric to text me some new bombshell. My mind keeps replaying his words. They left together. What does that even mean? Did they go somewhere innocent, or is it exactly what my gut is screaming it is? Eric called me this morning to recap everything, and we decided it was time to step things up. He suggested digging into Jamie, not just a casual glance but finding out who this guy really is. I'll ask around, Eric said. A guy like that probably has some skeletons. You'd be surprised what people let slip after a few drinks. Thanks, I said. And let me know if you hear anything else. I need to know, man. That night, Eric texted me around 10 p.m. O'Malley's is packed. No sign of them yet, but I'm asking the bartender about Jamie. 15 minutes later. Bartender says Jamie's a regular. Apparently, he's in here at least twice a week, usually with some woman or another. Doesn't seem like the relationship type. Some woman or another. That phrase lit a fire in my chest. If Jamie was the kind of guy who jumped from one woman to the next, what was he doing with my wife? An hour later, Eric called. All right, listen to this, he said, sounding almost giddy. I talked to this guy named Mike, one of Jamie's drinking buddies. Turns out Jamie's been bragging about seeing some hot older woman. Said she's married but unhappy, and she's got a husband working out of the country. Sound familiar? My blood ran cold. Did he say her name? I asked, my voice barely steady. No, but come on, Jason, Eric said. How many guys out there are dating a married woman whose husband's overseas? It's Rachel, man. It's gotta be. I didn't want to believe it, but the pieces were all falling into place. The late-night calls, the bar meetups, the cozy behavior Eric had witnessed. And now, Jamie's drunk and boasting about a hot older woman. I asked Eric to stick around, just in case Rachel and Jamie showed up. He agreed, promising to text me if anything happened. Hours passed with no news, and I started to think maybe tonight would be uneventful. Then, just as I was about to call it a night, Eric texted me. She's here. Same table. Just the two of them this time. I felt my heart drop into my stomach. Can you hear what they're saying? Not much. Too loud in here. But they're sitting close, like really close. Definitely not just coworkers. I stared at my phone, torn between rage and heartbreak. I wanted to march into that bar, confront them both, and blow this whole thing wide open. But I knew I couldn't. Not yet. Eric called me an hour later with the final update. They left again, he said, his voice low. Jamie walked her to her car this time. They hugged. It wasn't a long hug, but it was intimate. You know what I mean? I nodded, even though he couldn't see me. Yeah. I know. After we hung up, I just sat there in silence. I've got so many emotions swirling around, anger, sadness, betrayal, but mostly I feel helpless. I'm stuck thousands of kilometers away, relying on Eric to piece together the truth, while Rachel continues to lie to my face. I haven't confronted her yet. Part of me is scared to hear what she'll say. The other part of me is waiting for more proof, something undeniable. I don't want to accuse her of something this big without being 100% sure. For now, I'm stuck in this purgatory of doubt, waiting for the next clue to fall into place. I just hope I can handle it when it does. Update number. Oh, come on, I've already got lost past that, sure, so we'll just update it from time to time. It feels like the walls are closing in, and I'm barely keeping it together. I've been trying to act normal during my calls with Rachel, but every time I hear her voice, I'm reminded of what Eric saw. Her meeting Jamie. Hugging Jamie. Leaving with Jamie. How am I supposed to look at her the same way when I know she's out there doing whatever she's doing? Last night, I called her after work. I wanted to see if she'd slip up or offer any details about her day. Hey, babe, she said, sounding cheerful. Too cheerful. How was work? Busy, I said, trying to keep my tone even. What about you? How's everything going back home? Oh, you know, same old, she said breezily. Work's been crazy, and I've been catching up with friends here and there. Nothing too exciting. I bit my tongue, resisting the urge to call her out. Catching up with friends, huh? Anyone I know? She hesitated, just for a second, but I caught it. Not really. Mostly work friends. You know, the usual crew. The usual crew? She's never been close with anyone from work, at least not that I've ever heard. What about Jamie? I asked, throwing his name into the mix casually. Silence. It lasted less than 2 seconds, but it felt like an eternity. What about him? She asked, her voice suddenly defensive. I don't know, I said, shrugging even though she couldn't see me. You mentioned he got fired. Just wondering if you've heard from him. Her laugh was forced. No, of course not. Why would I? He's gone, remember? Gone. Right. Except he's not. He's very much around, sitting across from her at bars and hugging her in parking lots. I ended the call not long after that. I couldn't keep up the charade. Every word she said felt like another crack in the foundation of our marriage. Later that night, Eric called me again. Hey, he said, his tone grim. Got some new info. What now? I asked, bracing myself. So, I went back to O'Malley's tonight, he said. Jamie wasn't there, but I ran into Mike again, you know, Jamie's buddy. I bought him a couple of beers, got him talking. And he let something slip, Eric said. Apparently, Jamie's been telling people he's seeing someone who's married but working on leaving her husband. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. Did he say it was Rachel? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. No, Eric admitted. But come on, Jason. How many married women do you think Jamie's messing around with? The timeline fits. The calls. The bar. It's her, man. I sat there, gripping the phone so tightly my knuckles turned white. If what Eric was saying was true, Rachel wasn't just cheating, she was planning to leave me. I don't know what to do, I said finally. I can't keep pretending everything's fine, but I can't just confront her without proof either. Eric sighed. Look, man, you've got to be smart about this. If she's really planning to leave, you need to protect yourself. Your finances, your assets, everything. Don't let her blindside you. He was right, of course. I hated it, but he was right. After we hung up, I sat in the dark, thinking about everything. Rachel's lies. Jamie's bragging. The way she's been acting like everything's fine while my world crumbles around me. A few days later, without hesitating after everything Eric's told me and the lies Rachel keeps spinning, I couldn't take it anymore. I cut my assignment in Europe short. I told my boss I had a family emergency, not far from the truth, and they gave me a couple of weeks off. But here's the kicker, I didn't tell Rachel I was coming back. Why? Because I need to see this for myself. I'm done playing the fool, sitting thousands of kilometers away while my life gets ripped apart. I landed late last night, and took a cab straight to a hotel instead of going home. The whole ride, my mind was racing with scenarios, what I'd find, how I'd react, whether Rachel was even at home or out with Jamie. This morning, I drove by the house, parking a few streets away to avoid being seen. My heart was pounding as I watched for any signs of activity. Rachel's car was in the driveway, and the house looked normal, too normal, like nothing was wrong. I decided to keep a low profile, at least for now. Eric and I had talked about this on the phone, and we agreed I needed to gather solid proof before confronting Rachel. So I called him up. Guess where I am? I said as soon as he picked up. No way, he said. You're home? Yup. Sitting in my car a few streets from the house. Eric let out a low whistle. All right, what's the plan? The plan is to see if Jamie shows up, I said. If he does, I'll follow them. I need to know where they go, what they're doing. I'm done guessing. Eric offered to help, but I told him to stay on standby. This was my mess, and I needed to deal with it. I spent most of the day waiting. Watching. Nothing happened. Rachel left the house in the afternoon, but it looked like she was just running errands. She didn't meet anyone, at least, not that I could tell. When she got back, I waited a little longer before heading to the house. My plan was to let myself in with my spare key, stay out of sight, and keep an eye on things. It felt surreal walking through my own front door like a thief. Everything looked the same: the pictures on the wall, the throw pillows Rachel loved, even the faint smell of her lavender air freshener. For a moment, it was like nothing had changed. But then I remembered why I was doing this, and the anger came flooding back. I hid out in the guest room, listening to the faint sounds of Rachel moving around downstairs. Part of me wanted to confront her right then and there, but I held back. I needed more. Around 7 p.m., she got a phone call. I couldn't hear much, but the tone of her voice was enough to make my blood boil. It was soft, almost flirtatious, the way she used to talk to me when we first started dating. I couldn't make out what she was saying, but after the call ended, I heard her laughing to herself. Laughing. While I was upstairs, losing my mind. She left the house an hour later, and that's when I made my move. I followed her. Sitting a few streets away from my own house, watching everything from the sidelines like a stranger in my own life. This isn't how I pictured coming back, but after everything I've learned, I couldn't stay 3,000 kilometers away while my wife's life spun out of control, and apparently out of our marriage. Last night, after following Rachel to O'Malley's, I stayed in the car and watched. Jamie showed up not long after she did, and they spent about an hour together. There was laughing, smiling, leaning in close, the kind of stuff that used to belong to our relationship. But then, just like nothing was wrong, Rachel left alone. Jamie stayed behind, chatting at the bar. That's when I decided it was time to meet him. I waited a while after Rachel left, then walked into the bar like any other guy looking for a drink. Jamie was sitting at the bar, nursing a beer. His posture was casual, but I could see he had a cocky air about him, like he thought he owned the room. I sat 2 stools away and ordered a whiskey. He didn't pay me any attention until I struck up a conversation. "Busy night?" I asked, keeping my tone light. Jamie glanced at me, his brow furrowing slightly. "Not too bad," he said after a pause. "You new around here?" "Yeah," I said, swirling my drink. "Just passing through. Needed a break from the chaos, you know? Don't we all?" Jamie said, smirking. He took a sip of his beer and eyed me like he was trying to place me. We made small talk for a few minutes, sports, the weather, the usual bar banter. Jamie kept his responses short, like he wasn't quite comfortable, but he didn't cut the conversation off. Then I dropped a subtle hint. "This place has a good vibe," I said, gesturing around. "You must come here a lot. You seem like you know your way around." "Yeah," Jamie said, his smirk returning. "Couple times a week. Good drinks, good people. Met anyone interesting lately?" I asked, keeping my tone casual but watching his face closely. Jamie hesitated, just for a moment. "You know how it is," he said, shrugging. "You meet all kinds of people in a place like this." I nodded, pretending to be interested in my drink while my mind raced. He was hiding something. It was written all over his face. A little while later, Jamie excused himself, saying he had an early morning. I watched him leave, my gut telling me that he'd seen through me, but I couldn't be sure. About 20 minutes after I left the bar, my phone buzzed. It was Rachel. "Hey, babe," she said cheerfully, her voice lifting like it always did when she was trying to sound innocent. "What's up?" I hesitated, my grip tightening on the phone. "Not much," I said. "Just winding down after a long day. What about you?" "Oh, you know, just catching up on some work," she said quickly. "The usual. What about you? How's Paris?" Paris. That threw me off for a second. Then I realized she was asking because she thought I was still there. My mind raced as I tried to play it cool. It's great, I said, keeping my tone steady. Actually, I got this really nice shot while walking through Montmartre earlier. Let me send it to you. I hung up and quickly scrolled through my photos, finding one I'd taken during my last stroll in Paris before leaving. It was a perfect, serene image of cobblestone streets and Parisian rooftops. I sent it to her with a quick text. Missing you? Wish you were here. Her reply came almost instantly. Ah, babe. It's beautiful. Can't wait to see it with you someday. Love you. I stared at her text, the weight of the situation crushing me. She had no idea I was back, watching her lies unravel piece by piece. Jamie had no idea that the guy at the bar wasn't just some random stranger but the husband of the woman he'd been seeing. They think they're in control of this situation. But they're not. I am. Things are getting tense. After sending that photo from Paris, Rachel's behavior has shifted. It's subtle, but after knowing someone for 8 years, you notice these things. She's been calling me more often, sometimes twice a day, and texting me constantly. Just wanted to hear your voice, she said on a random midday call, her tone unusually sweet. How's everything going over there? She was fishing for something, though I wasn't sure what. Same as always, I replied casually. Meetings, projects, you know how it is. What about you? Oh, nothing exciting, she said, laughing nervously. Work's been crazy, but I'm managing. Her voice had this forced cheerfulness, like she was trying too hard to sound normal. Later that evening, she called again. Twice. The first time, she wanted to chat about her day, mostly mundane stuff, but I noticed she kept circling back to one question. You've been so busy lately. Are you sure you're okay? You sound distracted. Distracted? I wanted to laugh. The only distraction was her, sitting across from Jamie at O'Malley's and pretending she was still the woman I married. I'm fine, I said, keeping my voice light. Just tired from all the work stuff. The second call came after midnight her time. I couldn't sleep, she said when I picked up. I miss you. This wasn't normal. Rachel's never been the kind to lose sleep, even when I'm away for long periods. Something had rattled her, and I couldn't help but wonder if Jamie had said something after our encounter at the bar. I played it cool, reassuring her with the same steady tone I'd been perfecting for weeks. I miss you too. Just a couple more months, and I'll be home. If only she knew. Meanwhile, I kept tabs on Jamie. A couple of nights after our encounter, I went back to O'Malley's, half expecting him to avoid the place. But no, there he was, holding court with a few guys at the bar like nothing had happened. I stayed in the background, nursing a drink and pretending to watch the game on TV. It wasn't until his buddies left that I made my move. Back again? I said as I slid onto the stool next to him. Jamie looked at me, his smile faltering for just a second before he recovered. Yeah. Couldn't resist the cheap beer. I smirked. Must be nice having a place like this to unwind. Looks like you've got quite the social circle here. He shrugged, playing it cool. Yeah, it's alright. People come and go, you know. Must make it hard to keep things private, I said, keeping my tone casual but letting the words hang in the air. Jamie didn't flinch, but I saw the flicker of unease in his eyes. What do you mean? Nothing, I said quickly, waving him off. Just that bars like this, everyone knows everyone's business. Hard to keep secrets. He chuckled nervously, then changed the subject. We talked for a bit longer, but I could tell he was itching to leave. When he finally got up, he muttered something about an early morning and walked out, glancing over his shoulder like he thought I might follow him. That night, Rachel called me again, her voice strained. Are you sure everything's okay? She asked, skipping the pleasantries this time. You've just been. I don't know, different lately. I clenched my jaw, fighting the urge to confront her right then and there. I'm fine, I said evenly. Why are you asking? No reason, she said quickly. I don't know, I've been feeling off lately. like something's not right. Something's not right? She had no idea how true that was. Maybe you're just stressed, I said, keeping my tone light. Work, the house, it's a lot to handle on your own. Yeah, she said, her voice trailing off. Maybe. For now, I'm staying the course. Rachel suspects something, but she doesn't know I'm back, and she definitely doesn't know I've been talking to Jamie. Things escalated fast. I knew my little encounter with Jamie at O'Malley's had shaken him, but I didn't expect him to crumble this quickly. Last night, everything came to a head, and honestly, I might have pulled off my most genius move yet. It started with Jamie. He must have been stewing about our conversation at the bar because he finally broke. Eric texted me late last night. Heads up. Jamie called Rachel. Looked freaked out. Pretty sure he's gonna tell her you're back. The moment I saw that, my heart started racing. I knew this was it, the tipping point where Rachel's web of lies would start tangling up around her. About 20 minutes later, Rachel called. Jason? She said, her voice tight and panicked. Are you still in Paris? I smiled to myself, even as my chest tightened. This was it. Time to play it cool. Of course, I said, keeping my tone calm. Where else would I be? She hesitated. It's just, I heard something strange today. Someone told me they think you're back. Back? I laughed, injecting just the right amount of disbelief. Who said that? No one important, she said quickly. Just a random comment. But it sounded so weird I had to ask. I could almost hear her heart pounding through the phone. She was fishing, desperate to confirm her suspicions without tipping her hand. Rachel, I said, letting out an exasperated sigh. I've been here for months. Look, I even took a walk earlier and grabbed a picture by the Seine. Let me send it to you. I hung up before she could respond and texted her the photo. It was one I'd taken weeks ago, but my colleague in Paris, who was in on my plan, had expertly photoshopped the date on a clock in the background to make it look like it was taken that day. Here. Took this just a couple hours ago. You okay? A minute later, she replied. Oh, wow. It's beautiful. I'm sorry for doubting you. I guess I've just been feeling weird lately. I love you. I love you too. Don't worry so much. After the call, I sat back and let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. I just dodged a massive bullet, and Rachel had swallowed the bait whole. But here's the thing, her panic confirmed everything I'd suspected. Jamie hadn't just told her I was back, he'd convinced her. And if she was that quick to believe him, it meant she had something to hide. Later, I texted Eric to give him the update. Jamie called her. She asked if I was back. Sent her the Paris pic. She's off my scent for now. Good move. But dude, Jamie's a problem. He's spooked, and if he keeps pushing her, she might figure it out eventually. Eric was right. Jamie was unraveling, and his paranoia was going to make things harder to control. I needed to act fast before this house of cards came crashing down. For now, though, I bought myself some time. Rachel thinks I'm thousands of kilometers away, and Jamie's too scared to confront me directly. Some days later became a time. The moment everything came crashing down. I've been playing the long game, staying in the shadows, and waiting for the right moment. And last night I finally got it. It started with Rachel. She left the house around 7 p.m., just like she's done every other night she's met Jamie. I followed her, my heart pounding in my chest, knowing this was going to be the night I confronted everything head-on. She drove straight to Jamie's apartment this time, not to O'Malley's. I parked a few buildings away and watched as she walked inside without a second glance. My chest tightened as I realized there was no more denying it. This wasn't a coincidence. It wasn't just drinks or laughter at a bar. She was going to his apartment. I waited about 20 minutes before making my move. The apartment building was one of those generic, mid-tier complexes with too many units and not enough parking. I walked in through the front door as another resident exited, holding it open for me. My hands were shaking, but my mind was focused. The hallway leading to Jamie's apartment felt like it stretched for miles. When I reached his door, I paused, listening. I could hear faint laughter, Rachel's laugh, the one she used to save for me, and the murmur of Jamie's voice. My blood boiled. I knocked. The laughter stopped abruptly, replaced by muffled whispers. Then, after a few moments, the door opened. Jamie stood there, his face straining of color the second he saw me. "Jason," he said, his voice shaking slightly. What are you doing here?" I pushed past him without a word, stepping into the living room. Rachel was sitting on the couch, her face frozen in shock. She looked like she'd seen a ghost. "Surprise?" I said, my voice cold. "Jason," Rachel stammered, standing up quickly. "What are you doing here? I thought you were in Paris." I let out a bitter laugh, pulling out my phone. "Oh, you mean this Paris?" I said, showing her the photoshopped picture. "You didn't think I'd figure it out, did you? You didn't think I'd come back and see for myself?" Rachel's mouth opened and closed, but no words came out. Jamie looked like he wanted to sink into the floor. "How long?" I asked, my voice steady despite the storm raging inside me. "How long has this been going on?" Rachel's eyes filled with tears, but I didn't care. "Jason, please let me explain." "No," I snapped, cutting her off. "No more lies, Rachel. No more pretending. I've been watching, following you, talking to people. I know everything." Jamie tried to step in, raising his hands like he thought he could calm me down. "Look, man, I don't know what you think you know, but—" "Shut up," I growled, turning on him. "You don't get to talk. You've been sneaking around with my wife, laughing behind my back, and now you're going to stand here and try to lie to me? Don't even try." He stepped back, his face pale. I turned back to Rachel. "I trusted you," I said, my voice breaking despite my best efforts to stay strong. "I gave you everything, and this is how you repay me?" Tears streamed down her face as she tried to reach for me. "Jason, I'm sorry. It wasn't supposed to happen. I didn't mean for it to go this far." I stepped back, out of her reach. "You didn't mean for it to go this far?" I repeated, my voice rising. "What does that even mean, Rachel? You didn't mean to sneak around behind my back? You didn't mean to destroy everything we built?" Jamie, still standing by the door, looked like he was trying to find an escape route. I turned to him one last time. "You can have her," I said, my voice dripping with venom. "Good luck dealing with the mess you've made." Then I walked out, slamming the door behind me. When I got back to my car, I sat there for a moment, letting the adrenaline drain from my system. My hands were shaking, my chest felt like it was going to explode, but for the first time in weeks, I felt free. It's over, Reddit. The lies, the sneaking around, the pretending, it's all out in the open now. I don't know what comes next, but I know one thing for sure, I'm done being a pawn in their game. Time to start rebuilding. Thank you for your attention. If you like this story, make sure you subscribe and like it. Stay safe, and take care.